Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning show. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Kraynak.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Great to have you in. It's a road show Saturday. It's Hail Varsity Weekend Edition. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel will check in with Mark Kraynak on the way. We are at the annual Tyson's Treasure Chest golf outing as golfers are finding their way into the parking lot here at Woodland Hills. The carts are lined up. Searles is making his way around. JP, our dear friend from 96 Kicks, also going to pop on site with us. Elijah, it feels glorious this morning. Of course, out here on the golf course is awesome, but it feels like a fall football Saturday weather-wise. A little bit of rain in the Lincoln area last night. Folks are donning their long sleeves, which is all good. I'm doing that. So, hey, it is a kind of a football Saturday feel with all sorts of excitement in the air. How are you doing? I know you got a big old ball game coming up on the hardwood for Cornhusker State games and plenty of big red topics to get into today.
Yeah, doing well. If you wouldn't mind unplugging your headset. There it is. There it is. You had a little buzz going, but you seem to have fixed it now, which is much appreciated on a Saturday morning.
The wrong kind of buzz at 7:35 in the morning on a golf course.
That is the one thing we need to discuss. There was a lot of people that were predicting 7:50 yesterday for our start time. Who is 7:34? Was that we were here at 7:15, and we just got a table set up here. We're outside. There's going to be no rain till about 1 today or so. So optimum conditions to get things rolling as we're going to check in with JP. It should be noted I didn't see you in the stream until about 7:32. So just
well, we were moving tables and chairs. We were here about 7. JP, I was here about 7:10, 7:15.
Yes, he was early. With even being Captain Jack Sparrow, he was here to help us set stuff up. It's been fantastic.
It's all good. We'll get our starting 5 shout-outs going on, but the Tyson's Treasure Chest annual golf outing, tysonstreasurechest.org, where you can donate. JP, brother, you've been a part of this for a lot of years. You've been at the golf tournament every July 20th or around then. Let's reset that for folks. Tell your story, tell your connection for us.
Yeah, so Tyson, when I was working with a different radio group, him and his mom came in to record a PSA because he was going through pediatric brain cancer. And they came into the studios, and I just chatted with him about his favorite kind of music. And he says he likes Jason Aldean. So I snagged a couple of Jason Aldean CDs for him and made a connection with Liz, his mom. And then she's like, hey, is there anything we can do with Jason Aldean when he was opening up Pinnacle Bank Arena? Mm-hmm. He came in, was the first big act. And so we started a campaign on Facebook and Twitter at the time and said, hey, let's get tied to Jason Aldean and make a connection there. It was about a month campaign of pushing and pushing and pushing. And eventually, like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we get a message on Jason Aldean's Facebook page to Tyson saying, hey, I'd love to hang out with you. I'm going to do better than that. We're going to have you fly out to Atlanta to our show out there. They're big Braves fans. They got to go to a Braves game. They went to the ocean. They got to do all of that with Jason Aldean at his show, then the Braves game, and then the ocean for the first time ever. Came back 4 days later in Nebraska. He passed away from pediatric brain cancer. And so his grandmother was the one who came up with the idea, why don't we do a golf event in his name and help out other kids going through pediatric brain cancer? And so the idea behind it was to have the golf event to be able to build these wooden treasure chests that you could fill with toys, blankets, tablets, anything to keep kids' minds off of whatever they're going through treatment-wise at Children's Hospital. Now we have officially put because of this golf event 11 years in, we've put treasure chests on every floor in Children's Hospital. Now they've expanded on and they want more. And so that's why we keep doing the event. Ty would be 20 this year. He would have had his birthday yesterday. And so it's just a great thing to be a part of, a great family, the Chambers family, and what they do to help just about anybody, but specifically kids going through what they're going through at Children's Hospital.
JP with us from 96 Kicks, Hail Varsity Roadshow here, the annual Tyson's Treasure Chest golf outing here at Woodland Hills. And that is so thoughtful, paying it forward. Of course, funds to help fight pediatric brain cancer, research dollars, super paramount, but also the connection of being able to take your mind and emotions away from a tough place with those young kids going through treatment.
It's cold in those hospitals, and you're by yourself a lot of the times. And sometimes you can't have any contact with anybody other than maybe your mom and dad. And you're there, for a month at a time by yourself or with nurses. Luckily enough, they have amazing nurses and doctors at Children's, and they make it feel. But this just adds another level.
It does, and those toys, the tablets, the treasure chests. I mean, it has continued to grow and grow and grow.
It has, to the point where now we have a bowling event that we do every February that we've added on thanks to our friends at Sun Valley Lanes and Games. Mm-hmm. So we have a bowling event in February. We have the golf event here in July. And it's been fantastic to meet and grow and build this. And we also get support from Team Jack, which is a big part of Nebraska and helping other kids going through and fighting cancer. So we're doing our part by adding the comfort level to it versus just trying to find the cure.
Well, and JP, Nebraska athletics, Nebraska football is always on the forefront of giving back, being part of the community. And we had a chance to get to check in with Searles earlier this week and his story and his connection with Tyson. And
getting to do the tours with Ty and show him around Memorial Stadium, and Will Compton as well. When we ran into him in Nashville on a trip, he just happened to be out with Taylor Lewan doing Busted with the Boys, and we ran into them, and he knew exactly who Liz was. Mm-hmm. Big hug, and just it's great to see the connection the Huskers have. But whether it's current Huskers or alum that continue to come back and help out this state and anybody in it, no matter what is going on with you, they're here to help.
JP, this tournament's grown and grown and grown, and it is sold out, and it's been sold out, and it's an event. It's a great way to remember Tyson, and there is some creativity with some of the holes. Elijah, how would you be teeing off seated? And what I mean is there's the throwing hole.
Yeah, the toilet hole, which we sponsor with Kick 76.9 and my family. But we have a golden throne that you have to sit on to tee off on.
It's Better Call Saul-esque.
Very much so.
This golden throne.
This golden throne. This is Golden Throne number 3, like the third, if you will, because we've had other
third installment.
People sit on it that are my size, and all of a sudden the porcelain doesn't hold up very well. So we had to get like a heavy duty one from our friends at John Henry's, and this sucker's lasted 3 years now. So we're good to go.
Well, I think it'd be more fitting, honestly, to have that on hole number 2, right?
Yeah, it would, but it's so damn heavy. We put it at 10 because it's close to the clubhouse.
It's a little bit closer. All right. So JP, the website Tyson'sTreasureChest.org. Folks can donate. Folks can put on their calendar to be a part of this next year. And as far as the teams go, how's your squad feeling? Nick Gregath, of course, going to be golfing with you. How's the outlook here for winning?
Well, the good thing is there is the emergency kit that can help you with advantages. So we're hoping
buy a win.
Well, maybe not completely buy a win, but not like people have done in the past. But we're hopefully going to be at least competitive, if you will.
Sure.
And the setup for the trophy is fantastic. Each golfer gets their own. It's unreal. This trophy set. It's like a drink. You get 4 glasses. You get a glass bottle to put your booze in. It's in a wooden case. It's fantastic.
That is so good. JP with us here from 96 Kicks, Tyson's Treasure Chest annual golf outing. Searles and his wonderful family helping be a part of this and the fight against pediatric brain cancer. And of course with Tyson's, they build those toy chests filled with toys to get to all the children's floors in the hospitals, not only here in Lincoln, but surrounding areas, Omaha, and it's growing to multiple states.
It was going to go into Minnesota before the shutdown happened, and we've had to regroup and rebuild. But now we've made connections with some other areas, so hopefully maybe Denver and Philly is on the list too to try to connect with them. So there's good opportunities in year 12 next year to continue to build this and grow this. And it'll be Ty's 21st birthday, so we're going to have quite the bash next year. So
that'll be outstanding.
Yeah.
JP, I'll let you get back to it. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate
Thanks
you
for
as
everything
well.
you're doing.
Thank you
JP,
very
before you go, we do
Yeah.
need to know. I know you have plenty of corporate sponsor teams out there. Any teams that you like their chances to win today as you look at the field?
As I look at the field, usually I would say Searles' team, but the guy just isn't that great a golfer. That's the problem. And luckily enough, he's not around for me to say that.
We'll clip this part of the show.
Yeah, save that for a clip. No, just kidding.
Tag you and him.
He's a beast, and if Emma's on his team, then they might have a fighting chance.
Emma's incredibly talented.
Really good.
Yeah, she's outstanding.
Yeah.
Searles is he's
already out there.
He's at the
on
driving
the
range
right now. Yeah.
He is
He's practicing the short game, it looks like.
little
now.
British Open field today.
Yeah, it has a
Fall
nice
football.
vibe to it. I like this. This is great.
I'll let you be.
Hey,
Appreciate
appreciate you.
Thanks for everything.
Thanks,
you're doing.
Elijah.
Yeah,
See you, JP.
there he is, JP with 96 kicks, Tyson's Treasure Chest. 11th annual golf outing here at Woodland Hills. And just a fantastic setup and just a wonderful cause to be a part of. Let's get our starting 5 shout-outs here as it's a road show Saturday. We are off in Indy on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week for Big Ten Media Days. Walter from Philly checks in, and Walter checked in at 5:07. It'll be a Christmas in July miracle if they're on time today. That isn't nice. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Good morning, fellas. I'm with Walter. Believe it when I see it. We'll have to ask the stream if we did well enough today with being on time. There's our old dear friend Seth from Lazari's. You can get a bunch of Lazari's pizza here after you're done 3-putting. Carson's bringing it out. Is he? Nice. Good to see you, fellas. Guys, come on in. All right. Ooh. And Seth has got the Air Jordan 4 golf shoes, the black with the purple and teal. Get over here. We need to show the folks on camera these Air Jordan golf shoes. Yeah, we were on camera here. Kraynak is checking in. Seth,
what is happening?
Bar the Bar, Lazari's, wonderful wife, Allie. Say hi. As show the shoes off, dude. The John Denver?
The John Denver special.
There we go. All right. There's the Air Jordan golf shoes. I love them. Well, putt for dough today, all right? And do I need to call and make sure Junior's up?
Does Chris have a Jordan walking?
So he's bringing him out, huh? All right. That'll go well. Kraynak, how we doing, brother? Good morning.
You got a Jordan walking boot over there, or what?
That was my fault.
Yeah, you got a Jordan walking boot over there, or what's going on?
I do not have a Jordan walking boot, but I do have a doctor's note. Emma Searles with us. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for having us out. Tyson's Treasure Chest golf outing this morning. But no, I do have a doctor's note for taxi service around the airport in Chicago, and once I land in Indy. So they said, no, you're not going to be trudging through the airport next week. We can't put any pounding on that left foot. It's still broken, Kraynak. I know you're concerned.
So we go to Indy. That's Big Ten Media Days, which of course no direct flight. So you got to connect through Chicago. Okay, makes sense. Yeah. So you're going to have one of those folks driving a cart and get to sit on it, and you're walking along and you hear that beep 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 beep, and people saying, "Look out!"
We'll see, because I think I landed 11:30 Monday night. Not totally for sure, but let's dive into a little football.
But before we do that, we were talking fashion choices here for a second. But I'm surprised to see you're not wearing the Huey Lewis golf hat today.
It's in my car. Or Kraynak, yay or nay on Huey Lewis?
I'm more of an Eddie Money guy if we're going with that era. But you know,
Schmidt's got a game-worn Huey Lewis golf hat.
Yeah, our friend Sparky had a buddy that got into concert promoting and touring type deal and he connected with Huey Lewis. Well, Huey Lewis has this what used to be red, old school fitted Titleist golf hat. It is now faded to the point where it's pink, maybe a little salmon tone to it.
Coral.
But it's in my, what I need to do is have my mother sew the back of it since it's fitted. It's too large for my head. So I need to adjust the the fitted part of it, and then I will wear it. But it's a coarse worn Huey Lewis in the News golf hat.
Hip to be square, bro. All right.
Something like that. And when I hear that song, I just think of Patrick Bateman and American Psycho. But it's a golf hat that I will rock at some point on camera for us.
Good. Yeah, that's important. But today you're going with the coif, and who wouldn't? Who wouldn't with locks like that? So it's good to know. Good to know. This is scintillating audio for the people that are just listening on the podcast.
I'm gonna switch headsets. Hang on 2 seconds.
Yeah, okay, that would be good.
Yeah.
State baseball today, Tyler, by the way. Or not Tyler. I said Tyler. I was thinking of Coach. I was looking at you, knowing you're an umpire, Elijah. Somehow conflated that with Coach Tyler.
I was wondering, I was going through my Rolodex of former producers of Hail Varsity Radio. I'm like, I don't even think there was a Tyler in there anywhere. Where did you get that one from?
Nah, it's just the head coach. But state baseball today, I got to bounce at like 8:15, so in about 25 minutes or so.
Is that rain dependent, though? Because I know there is rain in the forecast today.
Well, it looked like, throughout the week, it was like, well, Saturday is not going to happen. But it stayed away. We're fine. Everything's on schedule as planned for today. So we'll see, man. We'll see.
Good luck. Where you guys playing for state baseball?
We're at Westchester, which is in Millard.
Okay.
Kind of Old Town Millard.
That is in upstate New York, right?
Might as well be.
Because I did see some of the Nebraska State baseball was going down in Council Bluffs, and I'm like, what are we doing here?
That's where the championship round is. That's where the championship round is. Yeah.
How un-Nebraskan is that?
They always have it.
We're gonna go
3-4 years in a row. We had to go to Council Bluffs.
Gonna go play the state baseball championships in Iowa. What are we doing?
My wife did find a strip club though near the ballpark.
Is that near Lipsticks and Dipsticks? I think it is.
Yeah, it's Lipsticks, and she got her picture taken with some of the other baseball moms before the championship game 3 years ago. So,
shout out to all our listeners from Council Bluffs. But I will say, I'm pretty sure you don't have to go far for a strip club anywhere in that town.
There's a handful. There's a handful in there. Yeah.
Kraynak, let's dive in. Tis the season
for media days. One of those things in years and years and years. We're gonna keep it that way.
How you feeling, man? With Nebraska football, a lot of the assistant coaches have talked up their position groups in their room. Pot roast this Thursday. Coach McGuire this week. Of course, Coach Donnie and the offensive line. Nebraska's hoping to have a good weekend here. On the recruiting front, we'll see if things materialize with Hawthorne and Pizak, the defensive lineman out of Fargo as well. They're looking at, but so recruiting on one hand, doing it on the field for 2024, super important. And as we get ready for Nebraska and Media Days, I think Nebraska will be one of those watch out for teams or intrigue. You're going to have your national talking heads that have already done a good job of maybe buying a little early stock on Nebraska locally. The feel is kind of wait and see and what type of quarterback play and how's your turnover problem. But everyone's putting money down, national and local, on just how good this defense can be. It should be an exciting, not only starting 11, but they could be, dare I say, 17, 18 deep with guys that can really chip in and do more than just play about 3 or 4 snaps for the starter. You could have guys that are good enough to be multiple year starters continuing to rotate in.
It's I would have to compare this to probably 2019 in terms of preseason lift one eyebrow intrigue for Nebraska, where you're like, they showed a little something last year. They're coming into year 2 with the head coach, just like very similar to the Frost situation, right? If you just look at on-field results and sort of competitive level, at least towards the end of the year, right? It kind of feels the same, where it's like, hey, all right, going year 2 under a new coach, and they showed a few things last year. They're getting their recruits in, their programs getting underway, and Nebraska's maybe one to look out for. This one feels like it has a little more legitimacy dare I say, compared to Frost back then, only because I feel like each position group has some. I just don't feel like there are glaring holes on any of it, right? I don't feel like there are glaring holes at any one position group. I don't feel like you're having to tap into guys that are just substandard. I feel like you have potential pro prospects literally at every position group. Some of them younger, right? Some of them proven. But let's just go down the list. Offensive line, Mazuka, Ben Scott, Ben Art, Prohaska. One of those guys, two of those guys, three of those guys could be pros. Is that
well? And you've got, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you could every one of those five, the starting five or penciled in five we think about, will get a look in the NFL, and then it's not just about the five, but can you be 7 or 8?
That's my question with a lot
Corcoran and Evans,
because I'm kind of like there's not among your starting 22, Mark. Yeah, I agree. There's not really glaring holes. You could maybe say the opposite corner spot on defense. I know you haven't gotten there just yet, but maybe you will. I question more depth in some places. Like,
it's fair. Should
you have Prohaska go down? Who's your guy that steps in? I know you've had Corcoran play all over the place. You've been trying to kind of lock him in as a guard. You move him back to tackle and jolts him all over the place yet again. Like, he's never quite impressed as a tackle. Do you go to one of the young guys, maybe Gunnar Gatula? Like, I don't know. Depth is a question on a couple different places for me. Offensive line is one. The defensive back room is another, especially like, say, Tommy Hill goes down this year for Nebraska. What do you have at corner that isn't a young guy? And the answer is, well, really not much. And I'm not discrediting the young guys. I'm just saying there are some question marks that would emerge. The bigger question for me with this team is not among the guys that you're expecting to be among your starting 22 offensively and defensively. It's what happens in the Big Ten. It's not a matter of if. I was going to say if you have some injuries. What happens when you get some injuries? There's a couple poorly placed injuries this year. Quarterback, left tackle. I look at potentially right tackle as well. Opposite corner spot or both corner spots. Like, there's some places where a couple poorly timed or just the injury bug were to hit in a couple of places, you go, okay, there's some concerns.
It's thin in some spots. It's thin in terms of known commodities, I think is what you're getting at, right? Because what I don't think you're facing is a lack of talent or oh crap, we need to bring in, Caden from Kozad to man the corner spot, right? Like, I feel like you have
options.
Yeah, I feel like you've recruited well enough that you have quality enough athletes just about everywhere. But you're right. Look, left tackle goes down, starting corner goes down. That's tough on just about any team, and I just don't think Nebraska's any exception. If you're Ohio State, you're going to swap in 5-star for 5-star. If you're Nebraska, 4-star for 4-star, right? So it's, as opposed to some other years where, I think it was like Riley's first year, something like he had 8 scholarship offensive linemen or something like that, and then a ton of walk-ons beyond that. And walk-ons can be a thing. I'm not saying walk-ons are throwaway, but you don't want to find yourself depending on walk-ons at any one position spot. I feel like Nebraska's past that stage now. I feel like you have quality recruited or transfer scholarship options across the board. And I think it's been a while since you could say that.
And I think you can say, it's year 2 of a rebuild, so it's expected that you're not going to have a fully fleshed out team. But there are some places to flip this around where I do feel like you have some Big Ten depth. We spent a lot of time on the defensive line yesterday. I feel like the defensive line has Big Ten depth where a couple injuries doesn't really hurt the defensive line. I'd say the same about the running back position. You might not have that top end, like definitive starter at the running back position, but you do have
disagree there, by the way.
Okay, we'll have to wait and see, I think. I'm going to wait and see mode with the running back room in terms of who that guy could be. But you have plenty of options. You have enough depth within the running back room that I say that's a Big Ten running back room, and that you have 5 options that I feel comfortable that would go out in the field and say, you know what, that's the guy that can get the job done for Nebraska. They might not be Monte Ball or Melvin Gordon, but they're going to be ready to go tote the rock in the Big Ten. Like, there's places where there's Big Ten depth. There's other places where you go, okay, that's worrisome.
The thing that you have with this squad, presumably, is developed depth. It's one thing to have a name. It's another thing to have a guy who started 30-plus games in Corcoran at a guard or tackle spot. Lutoski's started his share of games. Evans, because of injury with Piper a year ago, got time, right? So the developed depth part is big. Really excited, if you're a Nebraska fan, about the defensive line and just the number of dudes you have on top of a veteran group that's back, that's showing the younger guys how to do things. And by the way, those younger guys, from a talent level standpoint, didn't blink last year. They came in and provided a lot of good moments. Their jump, their growth, their ability to keep chasing those Nashes and Ties of the world and Jamari Butlers is something to really be bullish on. And that unit is, we think, going to be one of the top defensive units in the country and in the conference. Well, that's what you get to go up against if you're an offensive line that is trying to make that jump up to a good level, right? Get back to good, work on being great, and you're set up. You're set up to do good things in this conference if your lines of scrimmage are talented and solid, and your quarterback play, right? I mean, take care of the young guy and make sure he's upright. We're talking almost 70 quarterback hurries as a unit last year. We think Nebraska is probably going to be more, what's the word here, efficient, throwing the football. I don't know if it calls for it. I don't think Nebraska would be afraid to throw the ball 35, 40 times in that setting of a game. I don't think they're going to open things up run and shoot style where they're running the football about twice, a quarter. That's not how Matt Rule wants to get down. So all things got to break right, but it's a better setup with some more substance in this football team going into 2024.
I like the versatility you have on the defensive line. I think you can play a few different styles. I think you're good on standard downs. I think you're good on pass rushing downs. When you consider that Linhart and Prince Will are kind of, your pass rushing types, guys that can get on the edge and make some things happen. Prince Will in particular, I think he has one of the more unique skill sets on the defensive line that Nebraska's almost ever had. And I'm not saying that means he's going to have 15 sacks or anything like that, but his style is so different. He's such a unique player. If you go back and look at when he gets loose and when he gets into the backfield, he's like juking offensive linemen. He's doing some really weird body contortion stuff. He is a different cat altogether.
He reminds you of, at least me, of a really, really raw, another former Matt Rule product, Hassan Reddick. Where Hassan Reddick for the Eagles.
Take that every day, brother.
It's like kind of the same way once he gets in the backfield in terms of the disruption he causes. We also saw Prince Will occasionally drop into coverage, which Reddick would do as well. That's the guy that I'm reminded of whenever I watch Prince Will. And I think I'll say this now, which is years and years out, but I think you have two defensive line / Russian prospects in Cam Linhart and Prince Will that, from a potential wise, I think could end up being top draft picks, like first, second, third round guys, because they're different in what they can do as true freshmen. If you project out development, Prince Will's got unique athleticism. Cam Linhart's got, I guess, unique strength and athleticism as well. For both those guys to be able to step into the Big Ten and play as well as they did as freshmen, those are two guys that, with what we've seen from years and years of Matt Rule development at previous stops, you say those guys are future top-end draft picks if they stay healthy and develop the way you expect them to.
Because they held their own, like you just mentioned it. They held their own from day one, right? Held their own from day one in Big Ten play. Those guys were not liabilities. They didn't play a ton, right? Linhart played a little more than Prince Will. But yeah, they acquitted themselves well from the jump, and you would only assume that would improve. I'm a little, if we talk about defensive line though, the one thing that maybe I'm a little concerned about is your depth with what I'll just call bigs, right? Nash and Ty are giant human beings. They can each play a true nose. If it's a phone booth type game, you like having those guys on your team. Behind those two, I just don't know about the proven bigs behind those guys.
Judy, I like.
Okay. Big time.
Judy, I like. I will also say Van Poppel's another guy we talked about yesterday. That is another freshman going into his sophomore year. Needs to make a jump, but something I said yesterday and something we've heard from a lot of coaches on this show in particular is that guys are going to make their biggest jump that they'll make in college between their freshman and sophomore years. And if he's a guy that can do that, he's a guy that I think you feel a little bit better about, especially given the tutelage that he's going to be getting under Nash Hutmacher and Ty Robinson.
But I think all in all, you can get versatile on that defensive line. I feel like you are set up to play in a phone booth if you have to. I feel like you're set up in a situation where, hey, we're going to have to drop 7 and, we just got to get pressure with our front 4. I feel like you can play that kind of game too. I just don't feel like it just doesn't seem like there's a type of offense or a type of game plan that will just screw Nebraska from a defensive line standpoint. Right. I just feel like whatever you throw at them, Nebraska's got a pretty good answer up front, at least, kind of no matter who they play.
Brandon Vogel in with us from counterread.com. And, of course, Common Fan Podcast. Vogue's a part of that as well. Vogue's, let's give a capital V for versatility. Kraynak's on point with that. In this new world, this Big 18, you better be versatile with what you want to do and have to do defensively. And I think that was a plan from the get-go, wasn't it, from Matt Rule and company when he's got an idea of body types and builds he wants to bring in?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that was probably part of the reasoning with selecting the defensive coordinator who doesn't just run a 3-3-5, but was kind of there at some of the formative stages of that style of defense, which has become like kind of one of the dominant styles of defense in college football, just because of the versatility, to use the word, and flexibility it offers to adjust to a bunch of offensive styles. That said, when you look at the schedule a little bit for Nebraska, I think this year they've got a couple of other teams. The league got bigger, and the West no longer exists. The West was a lot of phone booth football, the bulk of what you're going to play every year. This year, you've got a USC on the schedule. You've got Ohio State, which wasn't the case. It was no fun playing Michigan, but we know how Michigan plays. Colorado, we'll see. The Buffs remain a mystery, but how many teams put up more than 30 points on Nebraska last year? Colorado did. And it kind of got away from them, Nebraska at the end there. But so it'll be, I think last year, Nebraska's defense showed really well. In fact, it alleviated, I think, one of the big concerns we would have had an offseason a year ago of, you're going to go 3-3-5 and have 5 DBs on the field, like all the time, quote unquote. They moved things around quite a bit. Are you going to be able to hold up against the run? Well, they were great against the run. So this year will be a little bit of a different challenge, and I think you'll see a little bit more variety of offensive approaches with the teams on Nebraska's schedule.
Speaking of offensive approaches, Hokey Skur 19 in the stream asks, does anyone else think Dante Dowdell is being slept on? He had a pretty good showing in the spring game. Could have a thunder lightning thing going on with Johnson, and Dante. My response to that, no. I don't think he's being slept on. I don't think he's being slept on because I'm not sure he's a huge factor this year.
Really
prove me wrong later. But at least from what I saw in the spring game, I think he can do some things. But when I look at the running back room, and Brandon would love your take on this, I think who's being slept on is Emmett Johnson. Yeah. And I think he has been slept on since he was a freshman. I don't quite understand why people overlook what he brings to the table. I think he's the clear best running back on the team. I think he was that way last year. Until Gabe Ervin can prove that he can stay healthy. I also like the idea of Ramir. If he can return to form, I think that's a huge X factor for Nebraska. But if you just ask me today, who should start at running back against whatever opponent for Nebraska, it's EJ, and I don't even think it's close.
I would agree. The starter right now for me would be Emmett Johnson as well. Looked at this a couple of weeks ago on counterread.com. From an expected points added perspective, Emmett Johnson was far and away the best back that Nebraska had last year, and that was on 90 carries. Like, it wasn't a short sample size. Now with Gabe Ervin and Ramir Johnson, you did have a little bit of a short sample size, but Ramir has played a little bit in a lot of seasons. It's what I think kind of the predominant thought with him is like, it's pretty good as a pass catcher, as your back who's going to take 15 to 18 carries a game. He showed flashes, but like the numbers aren't there with him. The numbers are kind of there with Emmett Johnson. Like, he's not one of the top 100 backs in the country, I don't think, right now. But he really made some hay, specifically on the run plays. He was the only Nebraska back last year that had a positive EPA, both rushing and receiving. Gabe Ervin, I think, was positive in the rushing part of it, but not to the degree that Emmett was. And then Ramir was as a pass catcher. And that's kind of what you got. Dowdell, I think it's possible he's being slept on a little bit. The thing that gives me pause is, like, the spring game was kind of the most we saw of him this spring. Like, he oddly didn't come up a whole lot during spring practices, and talking to the coaching staff, which, like, the media gets to see a sliver of those. There wasn't a lot of chatter around him, which gives me a little bit of pause there for a second.
Hey, I got to jump in just a few more minutes, but just to continue on the running back conversation. Yeah, Dowdell, it kind of reminds me maybe a little bit of the Phillip Dillard situation of just like it just feels like conditioning level maybe isn't quite there. And we're talking about elite, like the guy would look like Adonis compared to us. I'm not saying, I'm not saying he's Chris Farley over here. I'm just saying in comparison. But to go back to Emmett Johnson,
good comp.
Well, but I just honestly, I just think he can. That's probably what's holding him back. When he got in the open field, he did not show great speed, in my opinion. But to go back to Emmett Johnson, what I'm trying to figure out is like why he gets slept on in comparison. Because what is he lacking? His size is good, breakaway speed good, moves good, running into contact good, catching out of the backfield good, picking up blockers back or picking up blitzes. I don't see what his what's he missing?
Can I jump in on this really fast? Because I have a take. And maybe I'll be proven wrong once the season starts. I feel like all of these backs have something that they do best. And I don't think Emmett Johnson's is anything I think Emmett Johnson's best trait is his vision. I think he sees the hole. I think he hits the hole very well. I don't think he finishes through his pads like the kind of Big Ten bruising running back style that Gabe Ervin or a Dante Dowdell might have, which I think Matt Rule really appreciates. I think you look at Ramir. I think Ramir's probably got the most make you miss in him of anyone in the back. Like, get him in the open field, and he's going to be the biggest problem. Emmett Johnson doesn't have the best top-end speed. He doesn't have the best finish behind his pads. Doesn't have the most make you miss, but I think he has the best vision in that running back room. And there's some guys like Gabe Ervin, his vision at times, whenever you go back and watch replays, has been infuriating. I think he's got potential to be a great running back if you put Emmett Johnson's vision in him. But vision is something that's really hard to quantify as a running back. I see that most in Emmett Johnson being a guy that tends to hit the right hole. When he does hit the hole, he hits it hard, and he picks up his yardage where he does. Like, I don't think athletically he wows you like some of these other backs do, but I think he's got that hard to quantify vision that makes it really, really is very, very valuable in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think that all
right.
feels pretty accurate. In video game terms, Emmett Johnson might have the best overall rating, but he may not lead in any of the individual categories yet. I mean, he strikes me as something as a technician, which is good. Like, he's a guy who I think maximizes and did it right away in his first extended playing time. And you would hope going into another year, there'd be growth, and I think that's still possible. So I think that might be a little bit of why he maybe doesn't get as much credit as it, and I would agree with Mark. I think his 2023 was better than it maybe looked on paper. That said, like, half the games he played were part of a 4-game losing streak. They were at the tail end of the schedule when teams are banged up. He had Iowa and Wisconsin in there too. It was Nebraska wasn't running the ball as well at the end of the season, which is going to be true for most teams, as it was in the first 4 games, which is all we got to see at Gabe Ervin.
Brendan Vogel with us from Counterread, counterread.com. We're here at Woodland Hills for the annual Tyson's Treasure Chest Golf outing. Carts are in line. They're revved up. They are all departing towards their destined hole. Junior has got duty this morning to bring all sorts of Lazari's pizza out. The Lazari's pizza feed is part of this amazing fundraiser and golf tournament, and we'll see. We better not have Junior fumble. I mean, I'm a little worried about that. As he'll be here at 10 to get the pizza set up, which is pretty cool. Vogues, when we talk about Emmett, and you look at the Nebraska running back room, not just this year, but historically speaking, and there's been some greats. You've got your 3 or 4 guys that everyone is judged upon. All right. And immediately, if so-and-so reminds you of a Rozier, an LP, an Amon, then an Amir, then, okay, the guy's special. And it's not any fault of Emmett or that running back room. You're just waiting, though, for, I guess, greatness is the term, or consistency. And to be fair to that running back room, over the last several years, aside from Amir and aside from Zigbo, you've not had an emphasis on running the football. I mean, it's not been easy, or it's not been a style where Nebraska forever would just body blow the hell out of you and keep handing off. There'd be 40, 50 rushing attempts. That isn't what it is anymore. So can you be efficient with your run game? And I'm anxious with more passing threat this year to see, okay, can a veteran offensive line open some holes? And they have capable bodies. And given the situation of a balanced offense, maybe you'll see a back or 2 bust through this year.
Yeah, I think that's the key to the broad discussion about running backs. Can you add a little bit of balance offensively? Can you add a more consistent and realistic pass threat? That helps immediately. You got a very experienced offensive line. Can this be the best offensive line Nebraska's had? And who knows how far you want to go back? I think it's possible. That helps. So when I look at the running backs, it's tough to sort them out right now. But zoom out a little bit. Does Nebraska have the backs it needs to be able to run the ball efficiently and play football the way they want to play it? And yes, I think the answer there is yes, pretty emphatically. Assuming you aren't dealing with a bunch of injuries again, which is kind of the case at any position. So it's running back's an interesting position in college football. Like we could probably just spitball and name 25 like elite receivers in college football right now. How deep down the list do you get with running backs? Like there's not a ton. I mean, the Bijan Robinsons, the Kenneth Walker in college, at least, those guys are rare and becoming ever more rare, I think, in today's game.
I'm trying to think of the elite running backs in college football right now. You got the Ollie Gordon down at Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not sure if you'd put either the 2 Ohio State running backs in there with Judkins and Henderson.
I think Travion's up there. I like him a lot.
I like Judkins at Ole Miss as well, but it's kind of a weird room that the 2, I think they're going to be great. Don't get me wrong, but they might take away the other's elite status because of how they're probably going to be splitting carries this year. Elsewhere, am I missing anyone in college football? Like those are the names I think of as being like your top end running backs, and I can't quite think of anyone else. But that's also kind of the way football has changed as well, where a top end running back feels less necessary than it did 10 years ago to have a good offense. In college football, the NFL, really like the 2 top levels of college football, you go, well, having a top end running back doesn't seem to matter as much anymore.
Well, that's everyone is pass happy. Totally get it. That said, I mean, look who is your reigning national champion. How did they get down? They had 7 guys go in the draft from their offensive line, Corum and Edwards. Edwards is back, but how nice was Corum, right? I mean, your champion who demolished everybody, Ohio State, Washington, got through a playoff, outlasted Alabama in the Rose Bowl, did it with the play action. They did it with efficient passing, not making a guy go throw for 400 yards, but make enough throws. But it was the running game. So when we boil it all down, it still comes down to being able to outmuscle your opponent and run between the tackles, control the clock, and just wear folks down.
Well,
it's not sexy, it's not fun, but that's it's also not prevalent. There's only about a handful of teams, fellas, that can actually go do that.
Well, let me ask this question here, and I'm going to put Schmidt on the spot first because I think Vogel might have a better chance than Schmidt. The top running backs in EA Sports College Football, which is not a definitive list by any means. I included 3 of the top 5. 3 of the top 5, Ollie Gordon, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson. The other 2, I want to get Schmidt's take. I want to see if he can tell me where they play. Omarion Hampton is number 3 on this list at a 93 overall. Can you tell me where he plays?
Is he in the SEC?
He is not.
Give me the answer.
Let's get Vogel's take first. Vogel, can you tell us where Omarion Hampton plays?
No, I cannot.
North Carolina.
Okay. All right, that fits smack down.
And then you go down to number 5, Jaden Ott. Can you tell me where Jaden Ott plays? He comes in at 93 overall in this game as well. Former Pac-12 school, now in the ACC.
Stanford.
No. Good guess, though.
Cal.
There it is. It's Cal. That's what I'm saying about running backs in college football right now. It kind of underscores Vogel's point completely. Like, who the hell are these guys? That's no offense to them whatsoever. It's just kind of running back is not the sexy position in college football or the NFL anymore. And like having an elite running back does not guarantee that you're going to be an elite team in college football anymore.
No, but you got to have one.
I mean, the game has just changed so much, not just from a styles perspective, but like people are more aware of, I think, the math of it. Like the days of just having one of the best running backs in the country and be like, well, we're going to give this guy the ball 30 times a game, and if you can't stop it, we're just going to slowly march down the field. Like modern defenses will take that rather than the 4 or 5 play drive of not having the corners you need or getting beat deep consistently. Like the whole thing in college, more so than the NFL, is like, do not give up quick scores. Like make teams drive the field, because while these college teams are a really high level, they're still going to mess up more often on on play 8, 9, 10 of a drive than an NFL team is. So it becomes the lesser of two evils. Even if you're facing a guy like Bijan Robinson and you can't stop him, be like, well, if we get our run fits and we play with leverage, those we'll give him 12 yards. That's better than giving up 150-yard completion to a guy down the field.
Yeah, and Curtis checks in, and that's a good segue here from a balance standpoint. You throw for 2, you run for 2, you win a lot of games, you take care of the football. You're at even, or dare I say plus, on the turnover side. You get better on third down. Pass defense-wise, you get after the quarterback. Nebraska's been a good tackling team under Rule. But think about getting help in one of the 3 phases of the game. You get help running the football. You get help at the quarterback spot. It's a reason that Nebraska will be not Oregon, not Ohio State, not even Michigan at Big Ten Media Days, but it's going to be a team that has some questions and has a positive outlook. Vogues, it's been pretty fascinating to talk running game and where Nebraska's at in that running back room. And we take a minute here to look at what the next episode of the Common Fan Pod is coming up. You guys have done the reckoning. It's been incredible to listen and check them out. You've gone from T.O. to Frank. You just ended up with the Frost assessment. And now on deck is this Rule era in going into year 2. So a lot of excitement with this pod project.
Yeah, it's been really fun. People seem to have enjoyed it. As you mentioned, the Frost episode arrived this past week. So next week brings Rule, which means we're out of the past and into the present. So, um, which is which is which is good. The timing is right. That'll go out there first thing on Monday, and then we'll have media days, and then we'll be in fall camp, and we'll officially be all the way in the present. So it was a good discussion on that podcast. Michael Severe joined us as a special guest, along with the regular cast of guys who run that podcast full time. So it's an interesting discussion about what we saw from Rule in year one, not just in terms of on field results, but what we've seen through basically the 18 months ish he had been there at the time we recorded, and talking a little bit about 2024 as well.
What's coming up with Counter Read, Vogues, counterread.com. You and Aaron Sorensen do amazing work, and folks can check it out.
Yeah, so we'll be into Big Ten Media Days as mentioned next week. So that'll be some good fodder for not just things next week, but beyond that. I think Aaron's got an Olympic story she's taking a look at for next week, because that also kicks off. I was flipping through Phil Steele a little bit today. Mark mentioned the optimism levels now versus 2019. I was flipping through the draftable prospects from Nebraska. Produces some interesting results when you compare it to 2019. So that'll be coming up next week at some point too.
That'll be good. Vogues, enjoy your weekend, bud. Thanks for taking time this morning.
Thanks, guys.
There he is, Brandon Vogel with us. We welcome in the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp. We're out here at Woodland Hills, Tyson's Treasure Chest annual golf outing, tee off for Treasures fundraiser, and that battle against pediatric brain cancer. And Gary, it's we got here pretty much on time today. I ran into Seth, our dear friend from Lazari's, and apparently Junior has been tasked with bringing all the pizza out to feed these hungry golfers at the end of the golf tournament.
And Gary, I'll warn you right now, it's telling me your mic isn't connected, so you have a few seconds to figure that out before we officially welcome you into the show. But continue, Schmidt, about the hungry golfers and Lazari's Pizza.
Well, Sharpie, he might be rocking the Masters hat.
I think he is.
That is pretty good. We'll have to get his take on the Huey Lewis discussion. Let's get to the stream, though. Eat Beef is in. Jimmy White, Coach Brandon, Tiger Shark Diver. Good to have you. BP in. Moonbot, Stephen Nichols, Michael Barrett out in Carolina.
Wow, shout-out day.
Did it well. We do our starting five, and we got to about 6. Cliff in Florida is in. And then, Charles is checking in as well. We've had pretty interesting discussion here on the running back room and the optimism level and where Nebraska is at. But your Masters hat this week, a friend of ours, Sparky, gave me a hat. It's a golf course worn Huey Lewis hat. And what I mean by that is it was actually Huey's hat that one of Sparky's buddies took from Huey. It's too big for
Stolen. He stole from Huey.
Oh, you're saying Huey. I thought the real Huey Lewis.
Yes, no, it is. It's the real Huey Lewis's hat.
Wow.
It's, allegedly. So there's no DeLorean here to jump back and get proof.
Ah, the power of love.
Right.
Yes.
So
that's probably the only Huey Lewis song I can name, to be honest with you.
Kraynak was more of an Eddie Money guy in the 80s. Were you a big Huey guy?
You know what? I saw him. I actually went on a date to go see
Huey Lewis?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh.
This is in the 90s when, they're like, hip to be square. And I was like, yeah. And I turned to my date and I said, do you believe in love? She said,
and
so that didn't go over well for you.
No, you know what? I made a mistake.
It was Heisman.
It was a first date. Like, here, kids out there, never take your first date to a Huey Lewis concert.
Where'd you see him?
At where the Iowa Cubs play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any first date advice for the youngsters out there?
Probably don't be super aggressive. I don't know. Now dating is, I'm not in the dating scene. It's changed so much. People meet each other online and, they have certain qualifications and certain non-restrictions and open relationships. So I don't know. I don't have any advice.
It is a nightmare to try and figure out dating.
Hey, other than when you find one, do not let them get away if that is the right one.
Cheers.
Cheers to
Absolutely.
that.
And also do not on the first date microwave fish in front of your date. That's a bad one.
Speaking
but
from
broccoli's
there?
okay. But broccoli's okay.
Yeah. Hey, I made a nice meal. I didn't think it was done. Threw it in the microwave. We were done. We were done after that.
She sprinted away. So what's your take on the running back room? Is the wow factor, I guess, is the best way to put it. Why is there minimal or the waiting on the wow factor for the running back room? You can poke holes in what this room is. Not that they can't be good as a group, but there's not one dude that you're betting on to blow up. There's not in the mirror. It doesn't feel like, or a Ziggy or ... Right? There's not a great in there.
Can we appreciate the fact that Bo and Riley could recruit running backs?
Yes, please.
Yeah, they were really good at recruiting running backs, and that was an identity of Nebraska football. Here, everybody's opinion would change if at the end of spring the coaching staff was higher on Dowdell. Like if he was getting the flowers that we expected when spring started, we would think differently about the running back room. I will tell you, first and foremost, E.J. Barthel has to have a good year. I don't think E.J. Barthel had a very good year last year. I don't care if they had injuries or not. I don't think the running backs were as good as they could have been last year. Now, I also think there's some hesitancy, and I'm here to dispel it because Emmett Johnson, you want to like Emmett Johnson, but Emmett Johnson you don't want to embrace as the number one running back. I'm telling you, that dude has come a long way. I was off on him. I was like, why isn't Minnesota offering the Minnesota Player of the Year? He changed my opinion completely, and especially last year where he got an opportunity and he ran with it. Now, at Nebraska, we're lucky enough. We compare running backs to some of the best that have ever, carried a football. And I don't think it's fair with this group, but I think the philosophy with running backs at Nebraska has changed is they're not looking for that 1,200-yard guy a year, a guy that's going to carry the ball 250 times. The offense has changed. So I think, instead of having one guy that is on the field for 3 downs, they might have that one guy, but they're going to have 2 other guys. So I think it's a trio of running backs. It's a position, if you look at the offensive side of the ball and you're thinking, okay, what position group is in the best spot and what position group I still have questions on, you guys are absolutely right. Running back is where it is. But I will tell you, there's a lot of competition there because they will whittle that running back room down pretty quick.
My take, Gary, if you're going with a running back by committee, I kind of think of 3 guys carrying the mantle. The numbers you'd look for would be like shooting for 1,000 all-purpose yards from your top guy, second guy 500, third guy 250. Are those realistic expectations for your running back room? I'm talking all-purpose yards here, not rushing yards.
Yeah, I think let's look at rushing yards. I think ideally in the Matt Rule system, you go about 700, 450, 300 would be your top 3 running backs. And you using the phrase all purpose, the running backs from here on out at Nebraska, you look at the addition of Parker in June in next year's class, guys got to be able to catch the football out of the backfield. They're not going to be hammers. They're not going to just be running into the line of scrimmage. They'll find a guy for that. But they want guys that can be multiple, that can swing out of the backfield and catch a pass on the run and then take off. That was Quan Lacey. That's why I was so excited about Quan Lacey last year. I'm like, that is the ideal running back for what I think Matt Rule wants to do. He eventually decommitted, now is at Mizzou. But I think they're going to move forward. If you look at their identity of running back targets, that's the kind of running back they want. But it's an important camp for Dowdell. And I don't think he's not going away. He wasn't terrible. I think we want him to step in and just run with it. And I'll tell you, there's the Johnsons and Johnsons that say not so fast. And, I think also one other thing, Matt Rule can't quit Gabe Ervin. I can't trust Gabe Ervin. I can't trust Ramir because they're not on the field enough. When they are on the field, they show you flashes, but they haven't played much football. But I think Matt Rule like wants Gabe Ervin to be the guy because he won't quit him.
I think Matt Rule likes the way that Gabe Ervin runs the football, like the way he runs behind his pads, plays like a Big Ten running back, finishes his runs with power. Like, I think that's what Matt Rule likes to have within an offense. My problem with him is you go back and watch his film, how many times you just question the vision where you see an open hole and he misses it. Like, he loves to put his shoulder down and run through somebody as opposed to finding an open hole and picking up 5 to 10 yards. He likes to pick up 3 in a cloud of dust. I think Matt Rule likes that, but it's worrisome. The more and more I watch it, combine that with the injury bug, I can't trust him.
Yeah, that's a great point, Elijah, because I think where Nebraska needs to be better this year is the quarterback handoff game. And it's basically running between the tackles and that vision that you can read the hole or anticipate the hole, and you get skinny running through the hole instead of I hand you the ball off and you see that there's no hole and you immediately jump cut to the outside. So if Nebraska is better in just simply the quarterback handoff run game, then they have a shot to be pretty successful with all the other elements in their offense that you have a lot more confidence in than they strictly just turn around, hand it off, run the ball up the middle.
Think about this offense, fellas, when it gets a certain level of respect by the opposing defense. To your points, the handoff run game versus a quarterback run game, because that was how you got down offensively. You get 3, 4, 5 on first down between the tackles or even off the edge, right? Then that opens up some play action with a really high-level quarterback. You get one-on-one coverage with your play action, or there's so much open space because they bit. Good night. I mean, it opens a whole new door for what this offense needs to be or can be, if it's top 50, if it's top 65, and how it goes and complements the defense. So
how about just score?
Priority one's that run game.
Yeah, how about just scoring at least 3 touchdowns a game? I mean, that would be a nice start. I think, the biggest wild card between the end of this month and August 31st is we don't know, because we haven't seen it in a long time, what a quarterback that can make throws at all 3 levels can do for the entirety of the offense. Open it up where some people will start to shine because 15 is back there and 15 is dealing, and they have to pay so much attention to underneath stuff or over the top stuff that, bam, you hand them a run game. I think that's also, one of the questions I have that I'd like to see resolved sooner than later is Nebraska's situational play calling last year, I don't think was great. Now, a little bit of it, you had some personnel that were in places that they did not expect, but overall, the situational play calling has to be better. So if you have somebody on the ropes because you're able to make throws all over the yard and you're dinking and dunking and you're picking up chunk plays and then you sneak in a run, I love it. Then Nebraska's cooking with peanut oil. Can they get to that? That's what we don't know, the impact of a quarterback who, by all intents and purposes, this summer, and people that have watched their, I guess you would call it their passing time, he can make the throws. That stuff in the spring game where you saw the underneath, the crossing, the medium routes, the over the top, the fly patterns, he can make all those throws. And they finally have wide receivers that can do it. Now, do they have a running back that can take advantage of people paying more attention to the outside than they are the inside?
Dylan's been on it this summer. I mean, down in Beaufort again this past week with doing some team camp stuff. And Sharpie, talk a little bit about that dynamic. We've seen it before where Nebraska's had quarterbacks that have quarterback coaches and they're spending time with them. Then they come back, and this is more the Tim Beck era. Now you have this quarterback guru and setup that Raiola is a part of. I mean, and it's the who's who. I mean, it's NFL guys and Raiola that are working on the same skill set, that muscle memory, that just second nature of making a throw, looking at a read. And I know it's not under 3rd and 8 heavy duress with an edge guy coming in your face off the edge to beat the hell out of you. But hey, you'll take it, and you just love the work ethic that you have, to the desire to be great.
Well, and I think a couple of years ago we talked about this, where there are some coaches that only want you to be coached by them. And the one thing I think Rule has done is he allows guys to get as many reps as possible, knowing that their number one coach is the guy that is their coach at Nebraska. So you see guys working out, whether they come up to the Warren Academy, whether they go to Buford, Georgia, they work out on the side when it's not team time and it's reps. I mean, they just want rep after rep after rep. I mean, they have a good communication. Like Dylan Raiola is not in Kansas City working out with Mahomes' trainer and Nebraska doesn't know about it. Or he's in Buford, Georgia, posting pictures on Instagram, and Rule laying in bed one night is scrolling through Instagram, and he goes, huh? You know, they have good communication. But I think they want first and foremost, your position coach is your number one coach, but they want you to get better. And it goes back to the love of football. You know, if guys are like outside of the facility, they're doing football, they love that stuff. Because this is a program that if you work hard, keep your head down, and love football, it'll love you back. And so I'm glad they allow guys to get reps, to get schooling. One thing about Raiola, and we saw this in the spring, man, Glenn Thomas is more hands-on than I've ever seen a quarterback coach. Like, he's in the drills. He's not throwing the ball down the field, but he's in the drills and he's active. He's not standing behind the quarterbacks and adding some commentary here and there. He's aggressive. He's in there. He's showing exactly what he wants to do. And I haven't seen that in a while. You know, a lot of quarterback coaches kind of, they coach, but they let their quarterback kind of have a feel and work through a lather in practice. Not Glenn Thomas, man. He is right there on the front lines with guys. And I'll be curious to see what kind of an impact that has. Maybe not so much with Raiola, but Hurrdat and Kalen and the younger quarterbacks that come behind this last recruiting class.
Glenn Thomas, hands-on with the quarterback, Sharpie. I want to get your thoughts. How hands-on is he going to be with the offense as a whole in terms of scheme and in terms of what the play calling looks like? Because I think that's a big question. A lot of doubts about Satterfield's play calling after last season.
So the one thing to keep in mind is that the inner circle of Matt Rule is Evan Cooper and Marcus Satterfield. You would have not thought about Satterfield. You would have already known about Evan Cooper. Rule and Satterfield are tight. So privately last year, when people were knocking Satterfield, Rule was standing up and saying, you ought to see where Harburg was when we got him to where he is now. So Satterfield will have the say on Saturday. Glenn Thomas and the rest of the staff will be involved during the week. I think the bigger question, guys, and I know I brought it up with both of you, and this is a question next week, is who's on the old walkie-talkie in the ear of the quarterback during the games? Is it the OC? Is it Glenn Thomas? And I think another thing of having a true quarterback coach and also the ability to have an iPad on the sidelines is I think Glenn Thomas is going to be downstairs. Satterfield last year went upstairs late, but I think Glenn Thomas will be down on the field where that quarterback, that freshman quarterback coming off the field, you'll be able to work closely with him. But I'll just be curious, who is the coach at Nebraska who's going to be in the ear of Raiola when that 16 seconds goes to 15 on the play clock?
Schmidt, who are you
being asked to where hole one
Schmidt
is at? Forgive me.
Preaching.
One more time.
Does not know he's muted.
I am muted. Okay.
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear
Okay,
us,
we're
Sharpie?
good. No, I got you. I'm
not sure Gary can hear us. Gary, can you hear us? Oh, no. Oh, is he back?
Sharpie, did we get you?
Oh, no. The old technical difficulties have struck again.
Well, that's a good question. I'm going to pick up where Sharpie touched on with the walkie-talkie and the helmet mic, right? I think that's got to be your position coach. I mean, if you're the OC and you're in the booth, you're worried about the next play, and just get your game plan handled. And most importantly, keep rolling with what's working. So that's got to be Glenn Thomas on the headset, I would think, to his quarterback. And the positive thing, Elijah, is the Thomas and Sat have worked together. So it's not going to be a tug of war. It's not going to be a pissing contest. It's two guys that have both worked for Rule for a number of years. You go back to Baylor's success at quarterback with Brewer. I think I envision that again for Nebraska, where the collaborative effort is going to be fine. I have zero worry about Sat and the quarterback coach, Glenn Thomas, being able to coexist. They're friends, they're colleagues. And Sharpie, I think we got you back. Yeah. I think it's got to be Glenn on the headset, because Sat's job is to continue to try and slice and dice up the defense.
So what you're saying is you don't foresee that kind of Whipple and Frost tug of war?
No, let's be honest. It was Mount Whipple and everybody else on offense. He'd snarl and kind of hiss at folks, and they get walked over.
Well, I think one thing happened during the course of the week, putting together the game plan. I think gave you an indication that maybe Saturday was going to be a little bit rough. I think this will be more of a collaborative effort, instead of one guy has one idea, another guy has another, and yeah, they're going to talk and say, hey, this is what we want to do, but they never incorporate the ideas. And then it turned into a one-man show on Saturday, and that's why many times it looked discombobulated. I mean, at the end of the day, if Scott would have just been the OC and not the head coach, would have been fantastic, because I think he's a really, really good offensive mind. But he didn't work well with Whipple, and remember, he was the guy that selected Whipple. It was an odd pairing at an odd time, and I think the pairing of the head coach with two guys that are know football and offensive football and are involved in a game plan will work a lot smoother than it has in the past.
Sharpie, want to get your thoughts with a couple of other topics. I want to go on recruiting, and you have connections in Iowa. You have Hawthorne. You have Pizak, the defensive lineman, Nebraska.
P-Track, is that it?
P-Track, thank you.
I think the pronunciation.
No, you've got it right.
Those Eastern European names. That's going to be on our next Hail Varsity Radio spelling.
We'll just call him Hans. It's okay. But with Caden, he's Nebraska's in the market for another defensive lineman. He has got the pedigree. He's a upper Midwest kid in North Dakota, and both those kids are on the radar for Nebraska with the Oklahoma lean, I guess is the best way to put it, but maybe Nebraska's flipped. Also Hawthorne and Iowa State and Nebraska. What are your smoke signals telling you for each?
Well, Kate, I think Nebraska's going to get. I think that'll be a good pickup, and he's getting a lot of love from the recruiting services. Will Hawthorne is kind of interesting, where if you would have had this discussion a month ago, I probably would have said, well, he's going to Iowa State. He's in a bedroom community of Ames and Gilbert, which is, growing, I guess you'd call it a small town in Iowa and central Iowa. But they have good athletics, but they're right there. A lot of the Iowa State coaches live in Gilbert. And I think Nebraska has made a good impression. And I don't know. I would say Nebraska's probably a 60-40. It's going to come down to, Iowa State and Nebraska. But I think Nebraska's in a good spot there. They're going to finish up with a nice little flurry recruiting. I think before you get to the David Sanders announcement in less than a month, whether it's Nebraska or not, I think Nebraska will have a good finish to recruiting. And then how many limited spots you have open. What happens if you get off to a good start and Nebraska football becomes sexy and people want to come get some sex? They say yes to Nebraska. I don't know. That's the recruiting pitch to go with, but I mean, when was the last time Nebraska football was sexy?
Oh, I mean, some SEC schools have definitely pulled out that recruiting pitch before. Hey, you want some sex? Come here.
I mean, what? I mean,
you got naming any names.
You got 90,000 people in football porn every Saturday. We might not be able to get. Might be able to get Pornhub in Nebraska, but you go to a sea of red on Saturday in Lincoln. Man, you are fully husked for days.
Let's talk.
Why am I not recruiting?
Let's talk. Well, you know what? I like that recruiting pitch. Tigers, shark, diver. Let's talk Mosey. Nebraska is Lee Summit North, guy that was at Central Florida. Did we ask you about this last week?
No, we hadn't talked about it.
Forgive me.
To be honest, guys, from the last time we talked last Saturday to this Saturday, there's a lot of stuff that has gone on.
Yes, it is, for sure. With Mosey, though, I mean, I like the high school ranks going that route, a little bit of college experience at Central Florida. I go back to, and you knew these coaches real well, Sharpie. I go back to T.O. and just the foresight to go get great coaches from your state at the high school ranks, with Solich being a Southeast guy, with Milt being out in McCook, and then, of course, with Dan being at Westside. And you had three key cogs that had all parts of the state surrounded. Missouri is a premier sleeping giant state. We kind of know about it. Nebraska recruited well in Missouri for a lot of years, but it is a major hub, to keep with the hub theme, for all sorts of programs. It's a crowded space, dude, for not only programs on the rise down there in the Big 12 and the SEC, but, you know, it's a stomping ground Nebraska wants to get back into. You get one of their really high-level talented high school guys that can make a difference on the recruiting trail. And he's, well, or at least make a difference from a relationship standpoint. I should put it that way, in the Kansas City, Missouri metro region. You need to get in there and plant a flag if you're Nebraska.
Yeah, but you also have to keep in mind the in-state school is really good right now. I mean, they're coming off a double-figure win season. They got a lot of momentum.
Good. K-State's good.
Yeah, I think with Mizzou, you have a head coach who's a recruiter that may be showing that he can coach a little football, because they're a team that could get into the playoff this year. They also, the thing with Mizzou is they've gone all in on their NIL. They're super aggressive. Everybody's on board with their NIL. I actually said earlier this week on my show, could Nebraska be the next Missouri? Middle of the country state program that, you know, has kind of meandered for a bit, finds the right coach, gets some recruiting success, has a more aggressive from the top down NIL, and all of a sudden they pop and they use some in-state kids because the in-state 25, 26, 27 are going to be good runs again for in-state talent. The thing with Missouri is you have to be able to sell success over sunshine. And I don't know also if the Big Ten resonates in the state of Missouri. If you can go in and say, hey, we play in the Big Ten. The SEC resonates, but the Big Ten maybe doesn't. But it's nice to have connections there. And I would tell you, in his short amount of time, Mosey's time in Lincoln, he fits the profile of a Nebraska assistant coach under Rule. Relationship builder, can quickly get up to speed and get in with kids and talk the talk and get to know them and then sell the brand. You know, he already made an offer. Like the first day on the job, he was making an offer. So he's out there. You know, what happens with his son, who knows? But I think that's a good addition in terms of the connection in the state of Missouri, because he's well known and he was highly successful. But also I think the overall part is he's another guy that can recruit. And, you know, Nebraska is still kind of looking for that hammer. You know, you replace Evan Cooper, who was a great evaluator, the best evaluator that Rule had, and Rule relied on the eyes of Cooper. I mean, is he looking for that next guy that can evaluate, but also can be a hammer in terms of recruiting?
How many Evan Cooper types are out there, Sharpie? I mean, you've got smooth talkers in the recruiting world. You have NIL, that's a real reality. You've got an emphasis on communication because your head coach does it so well, and guys feel appreciated, and they're not just a number, they're not just a name. But can you go replace what Cooper brought you, not just in Lincoln, but also all of the stops along your way in your career? Right. You're going to have to, but that's not such a subtle gloss. I mean, it's a concern.
Yeah, it's a loss because of the institutional knowledge and the relationship and the trust. You know, recruiting from the head coach to his assistant coach is a lot of it's trust. You know, when a guy is going to bat for his recruit, do you trust that position coach, if he's going to publicly say in a recruiting meeting, we got to offer this guy, do you trust him? You go, is he trying to get something else? Or if he just says, hey man, this guy's a dude, you go, give him a scholarship. It's your call. I think Rule gave Cooper a lot of leeway because he trusted him and he was good at just evaluating. You know, hey, this guy would be good for us. This guy would look better on this side of the ball. That's going to be the tough part to replace. I think you can go out there and find the Evan Coopers that are good on the recruiting trail that have those connections. But in terms of just being a relationship where it's an evaluator, where you trust that person's eyes, that's something you can't replace overnight. And that's probably the biggest miss that you'll have for Cooper over the next 6 to 8 months.
It's Gary Sharp with us here, a weekend edition of Hail Varsity Radio. As you talk about that trust factor, Gary, it's a different side of things. But I want to go back to Missouri here really fast because there's trust between position coaches and head coach that needs to be built. But another thing you need to build, as you talk about this pipeline that you're hopefully trying to build to Kansas City, is you got to have that trust between the high school coaches and the coaching staff at Nebraska as well. And there was a great recruiting confidential from The Athletic with high school coaches in the Missouri area. And one of the things they talked about was the trust they had with Missouri, because Coach Drinks, they say he's got a plan. And you go back 2 years, the things he was saying about the plan that he had in place for Missouri, it's coming to fruition. And the plan that they had in place for the kids, it's coming to fruition. So whenever he comes to your high school, you're inclined to trust him. And I kind of want to get your thoughts on Matt Rule and his plan at Nebraska, what he's telling high school coaches across America. Do you think that can lead to returns in the long run whenever you say, you know what, this plan that we have in place for your player, this plan that we have in place for our program, if you look 2 years down the road, if all that's coming to fruition, do you think that can help those areas like Kansas City and like St. Louis and those recruiting hotbeds you're trying to build? Because that's kind of the game plan that Missouri pulled out was, hey, we have a plan in place. This is what it looks like. And now you can look back 2 years and say, man, he has executed that plan perfectly.
Yeah, that's a great point, Elijah. And I'm glad you referenced that article. And it was a really good article in The Athletic. You know, all those coaches in Kansas City, they have so many coaches that come through the door, and they kind of, after a while, it becomes noise. You know, everybody's telling them the same thing. And one of the things that the article pointed out is the coaches in Kansas City, like the Nebraska staff, that go in there because they're good in relationships and they are authentic. But to your point, Rule has a plan for everything. Mm-hmm. And they approach recruiting a little bit differently. You know, I think Scott, because of his past being at Nebraska and so much, hey, we got to get this thing going. Let's get it back to the glory days. Their pitch was, help us be part of returning Nebraska football to what it was. Rule's recruiting pitch, and I know this a little bit more in-state, and I got to imagine it doesn't change much when you go out of state, is this is what we have. This is what we can do for you. This is what you can become in our program. Instead of help us get to blank, it's just, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is what we can do for you. This is what you can become in our program. And that sounds like a plan. And if they get it to pop, that's why they have nice recruiting momentum when they're selling sunshine. If they get some success, that plan won't change. And then that's where they become the next type of Mizzou, where they had a plan, they worked it, they got success, and people go, oh yeah, I want my prospect to look further at Nebraska. And if he goes to Nebraska, all those things that Matt Rule was telling me 3 years ago are going to come to fruition.
It's important to get that payoff, and Drinkowitz has had that from being an assistant as good as he was between the Arkansas States, right, and the NC States, and then to get that win and that really impressive 2019 at App State. And then even coming to Columbia during COVID, he's built them up, man. He has built them up, and he's locked down the in-state border. And he's gone after big fish in state, and that's key. You've kind of seen that with Rule, for the most part, able to keep in-state kids in Lincoln, and that's step one. Sharpie, before we get you out, Elijah's got to go put on the old Patrick Ewing knee pads and go play Cornhusker State games hoops here shortly. Any new intel on Christian Jones?
No. Same as it's always been. Just a little waiting game.
Just a little waiting game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Nothing new. You know, I think Nebraska has made their pitch, and we'll see what happens.
Gary, last thought here as I get off to the hardwood. Over under 1.5 made 3-pointers for one Elijah.
Oh,
Herbel
yes, we do have
in game one.
Okay, I will say. Well, can I ask a quick question here before I give my answer?
Sure.
Last time you played basketball, competitive basketball.
Last competitive basketball?
Yeah.
Or basketball. I played a good amount of pickup. Played pickup back in college. Competitive basketball, if we're talking actual like going to practice and playing in games, 8th grade.
Under. Sorry, I got to go under.
You're going over. You're going over.
The first game. Well, I mean, are you gonna shoot a lot? Are you a shoot first, pass later guy?
Depends how open I am. If I'm open, I'm putting it up.
Okay. I'll still go under.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I mean, no, don't try and pull an Angel Reese on me, and you're like, oh, I got to get to that 2 to make Sharpie look bad.
No, I'm not going
to be demanding the ball when you guys are down 40.
From my intramural days back in college, I'd say my number was 1 to 2 per game. One I'd usually hit. The second was always the tough one where, I don't know, if I see one go down, I'm going to put that next shot up and see if it goes down. If that one goes down, then we're talking, it could be good for 4 or 5 in a game, but it's rare to see that second shot go down.
I mean, I think I hope people realize that Hail Varsity Radio with you two hosts might be the most athletic show going in the state. I mean, Schmidt's out there golfing.
Don't think so.
You're playing mud volleyball. You're out on the baseball field. You're playing basketball. I mean,
you're active at 25.
I'm saying we got to get the Nebraska media combine going and determine who is actually the most athletic radio show, because I think that leads to more authority.
Don't care. Don't want to jack with that.
Yeah, the media
40 in the boot.
The media outing is swinging a 3-iron.
Yes, it's golf. It's golf and drinking. It's beer games and golf. Sharpie, we'll check in with you again soon, bud, and appreciate you as always, man.
Hey, safe travels to Indianapolis. This will be a fun week, and we are a Saturday closer.
That we are.
How does 6 sound?
That is good. Gary Sharp with us. Iron Horse, weekend edition of Hail Varsity, and we'll holler at you next time. Elijah hit that 3, and we'll be back at you Monday with Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.